All right. Stuck with me now. um, so I'm pretty much just here to, just like last Thursday, run through any assignment 3 related questions. So I know many of you won't have them. Like I don't think we're going to be talking here for an hour and a half. But and I know there are some forum questions too, and I'm not going through specific things in the lecture because I'll just spend that time in the forum. But basically, curious again if people have particular conceptual questions or other questions around the exam, then yeah, let's chat through them now. Unless you're all just dead inside. Do you have any tips on doing component tests with libraries such as React Bootstrap? Oh, sure. This question came up last time. So you can't test component library items. That'd be like doing something in Python, right? And we ask you to implement a function that basically just calls a library function, like some kind of encrypt function or some kind of timing function, and then ask you to test it. It's like the most you could test is like just the most bare bones black box. So generally speaking, you wouldn't test library components, nor would you test your components that basically just wrap library components. Um, the best components to test are ones that you write. They're like your components that have a lot of your code in them, and that they have props, and that they'll typically have some kind of click functionality or type functionality somewhere. So sometimes like login and register forms work really well if again you've got like certain on clicks that they're passed, or like a state to do with whether it's read or not, depending on whether there's input there. Little components like that are the best ones to test because you can get a lot out of them without feeling overwhelmed. But yeah, you don't really go near component libraries because they're in theory already tested. How's everyone feeling with assignment 3? The impressions I get in the forum are that most people seem like they understand generally what they have to do. There's a couple of hiccups, but I think a lot of people seem to have started late as well. Like I got the impression that quite a large number of students, I mean, I'm only talking to like 8 of you, so I know it's a subsample, but yeah, I got the impression quite a large number of students started like this weekend that's just passed or something. Cool. Okay, everyone. Well, if that's all we have, then let's wrap it up unless anyone has any other questions. And I'll let you get back on with your work.
Hey, Hayden, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I have a question regarding to the question 2.4.2, which is the play game.
2.4.2?
Yes, for the player able to join the game and play it. So here's a question. I understand that the admin page, they will have the feature for pressing the advance button to switch to the next question since the game, once the game started. And my question will be, is that separate, two separate web page? I mean, two separate browsers, this is happening. The admin will have a page to controlling all the questions, and the player will see a separate page when they play the game. Is that the case, right?
Yep, that's the case.
And I'm facing a problem right now is for when I click the advance, I will talk to the API and get back to the stage by giving the session ID and clicking the advanced session/advance API, and then the API will return me the stage so I can keep track with which question I'm on, right?
Yep.
So I'm having a problem that once the admin clicked advance, that stage I cannot share with the user. The user is using a different browser. So
well, the stage is managed through the backend. So if your admin pushing a new stage advance and you have a player requesting the status or the update to a question, they don't need to be on the same browser because they're talking to the same backend.
Okay, I see two way out. So one way out will be the for the player. Every, I don't know, 2 seconds or 5 seconds, he can fetch and ask the backend whether the admin has switched to the next question or not. That's one way out. And the second way is somehow once the admin click the advance, which is the next button, somehow in the front end or in the local storage can be transferred to the player's page. So
yeah, so it's great that you're thinking about it like that because you've got your head around it. Generally speaking, the latter one, the second option you mentioned, isn't really possible unless you get into the world of WebSockets and pushes and stuff, or like long life HTTP requests. So everything we're doing in this assignment, which to be honest is a fairly standard way most APIs would do it, is just through the first one, which is what we generally call polling.
okay.
Usually for an application like we're doing at uni, 1 second is plenty. Like 1 second is enough to poll it. If you were doing like a commercial application that was polling, you would probably do something smarter than that, either like less frequently, or you'd be smarter about, like, if the user's not moving their mouse, you poll it really infrequently or something, or if they're not on the screen, because otherwise, your server demands go like way up. But a second's fine for the assignment.
All right, so basically, okay, all right, cool. That answered my question. And also, do we have any demo? If you have already shown a demo to us for this assignment, I apologize. But is there any demo we can take a look at how previously for the last term, how people have working on this assignment, how does that looks like?
No, we probably don't. I'm sure I probably could have put one together. I probably wouldn't put one together so late, just because I'd want everyone to kind of get access to it fairly. But again, it's besides a couple of quirks, it does model itself pretty similarly to the Kahoot game, which is why we share that Kahoot game in terms of the question editing, and then you kind of get a link to people to play the game, and the admin is advancing it and clicking next and getting results. I mean, basically, it's just asking you guys to build the Kahoot app, just with a couple of differences.
Okay, all right, that's fine, fair enough. And one last question.
Yep.
For the feature 2.5.1, which we're asked to upload a game either by JSON or CSV.
Yep.
I have no idea where to start. Could you give us any hints or tips? I'm just kind of confused at the moment. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, basically, like the way you think about it is that when your front end makes an update to the quiz, it sends a big payload, right? It sends an object which has like name, thumbnail, and then it has a questions key which sends a list of objects, and each of those objects has all your game, your question information in it. All we're really saying is that what we'd like you to do is for a user to be able to upload a JSON or CSV file that's structured how you choose, such that instead of filling out, instead of filling out and clicking all the form buttons and putting in all the inputs and stuff, they could just upload like a JSON, like an import game kind of thing, that will just like immediately, the browser will open the file, take the JSON or CSV, package it, and send it off to the backend. So it's pretty much just like an import function, if you will.
Okay.
And because everyone has different question data, that's why we ask you to include a copy of your CSV or JSON, because and you only have to do one, by the way, not two. Like you don't have to do both. Like it's just JSON or CSV. We want you to put a copy of it in your repo because again, everyone's question structures are different. So there's no way we could have like a central JSON structure and make everyone upload it. That wouldn't work.
Just this might sound a little bit dumb, but just to confirm, for the upload JSON file, it's supposed to be able to contain multiple questions, right? And we are supposed to be able to handle that.
Yes, I think someone asked this in the forum, and I think I said just the question data is fine. So like questions as a list of objects, and as everything in that questions thing is good. Yeah.
All right. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Cool. That's all good. It was a good bunch of questions. Anyone else dying to get some things off their chest? Or oops, sorry, I don't know if no one's chatted. I'll give you all a minute to ask things if you have them, otherwise we'll wrap it up. And we'll keep doing that till I get a minute of your silence. Can the admin run multiple instances of the same game at the same time? No, they can't. And as I said this in the forum, and I pinned the post, but there's another problem with how I've written the spec where games don't really have a history. So remember how we said that you have to be able to view like previous instances of the game? Because of that will only work if like the game doesn't change, I think. So what we basically said to students is, if like once you play a game, like when we test your code, we will create a game, and we will run a game, and then we'll run another game, and like we'll never modify the game after we've made it. Do you know what I mean? It'll always stay the same. So yeah, that's just a random fact as well. So an admin only can run one instance at a time, and we're assuming that once a game is created that you can't modify it anymore. Obviously you can, but for testing purposes we won't do that, because it will probably break your previous results, like historical results section. Is there a way we can disable linting while coding, make life easier? Probably. You can probably just modify the package.json file, I'm sure. And I know it's a little bit of a controversial decision. I don't know how I feel about it. Last term, we made everyone use the Airbnb linter, and like I cannot even begin to tell you how anal retentive that Airbnb linter is. Like if you breathe like a few degrees too warm, it will fail your code. So yeah. Yeah, I know it's a bit annoying, ones that force single apostrophe instead of double. I mean, I think I'm empathetic to that. I'll usually share the same info, which is like that, there's a good chance you'll go work at a company like Canva that'll have a whole style guide that you won't like. And that's just how life is. Like no one cares about my style or your style, sadly. I'm lucky enough that I guess I run my own company, so I guess in that sense I can do what I want, but that won't last forever in my life either. So I think the more annoying ones are when yeah, you're trying to just hack stuff and it's just like, your indentation's wrong. And it's like, I'm just trying to test something. Um, but yeah, this lint is a little bit nicer than the last one. The last Airbnb one, I can't even tell you how many students put me out to dry and hung me up in the street. It's like you basically had to write perfect code to hack anything. So you could probably just disable it in package.json. Yeah. It's one of those funny things though, where like what happens is if we make it disableable, anyway, if we make it able to be disabled, then everyone disables it and then they all panic in the last day, hours, and then there's a rush of forum posts of people saying, I don't know what this linting rule means, because it's really hard to like understand like 100 linting problems in a day than it is to kind of like understand one every hour as you go. So there's a little bit of method to the madness. I'll basically just say I'm sorry for your troubles. Yeah, that's about it. But again, you can turn it off. Like I'm sure you can just remove things from package.json. I wouldn't know what to remove off the top of my head, but anything that looks like linting, you could just rip it out and paste the package.json version back in later. I'm sure that would work as well. We generally trust that people who are confident enough to modify those package.json files are usually, they don't need hand holding through the course as much. So. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is good practice. There's some that annoy me. Like I really hate, I've really gotten into the habit of like two-space indentation. That's like my new life now. I don't know why I ever didn't do two-space indentation, and anything that wants me to do more, I just think is really annoying. How to transfer the value from a child component to their parents. Oh, so I won't do a full example because it'll take me a long time to set up, but I'll write you some crap really quick. Let me just share my screen. Okay, I assume you can see this. So basically, if you have like class parent, I've forgotten how to write JavaScript. Oh, so if you have like a parent component and then you have a child component like this, and let's say the parent has like two children, right? Like child like this, child. Then if something like happens in the child that you want to pass to like a parent, I don't know, let's say you want to get this 5 to the parent, there really is no way to do that besides to say here go like const info set info equals react.useState null, and then to say like child update info equals set info or something like this. And then to simply have child taken a props called update info, and then to simply call update info with a on it like that. So it's not so much that a child transfers it to the parent, it's more that a parent gives the child a function that will update something in the parent, and the child can call that function whenever they want to update something in the parent. I don't know if there's a particular programming pattern or React pattern that's referred to as, but that's a pretty standard way to have a parent managing broader state and to basically delegate responsibility for things to its children. Anything else?
Hayden.
Yep.
See you again. So, okay, is there a way we can change a button, its value, and also its on-click function based on some condition? For example, the start game. Once you click it, it can become an end game. And the most importantly, the function, the on-click function, can be updated to another one as well. I mean, I tried to do that, but I failed. So just kind of don't know how.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that simple things like this would be like flags like this. So like, is your game done, for instance? And if it's not done, then you might return, say, like button value equals something, but the value here would say like, if it's done, then begin, else end, and then your like on click would be like done function and fail function or something like this. If it's done, then it would be the done function, else it's the fail function. That's like one way you do it. The other way you do it is like just by literally by conditioning it in terms of like return if done. Like a common way would be to say if done, then return button value equals begin, on click equals. If you want to interrupt me, please do as well. Like this. Otherwise, you'd say button equals end and equals fail function. Basically, like just conditional rendering. It's just like I would say that if you're changing basically every property, then the second one is considered a bit nicer because it's a lot easier to read what's happening here. You're like, okay, one type of button, another type of button. If you're just changing one or two properties, then usually the first one's probably a bit cleaner.
Okay, so okay, are we able to do that in the JSX file, like the among the HTML, or we have to define this question mark and the, I don't know how to say it, the double dot within the function, which is the JS?
Anyway, you could, you could you could do this, or alternatively, you could just have like button text and then just do that. So you're not even like you're doing the conditionality a layer above it in a parent or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Oh, sounds good. I'll try that out. Thank you.
Cool. That's all good. No worries.
Then there's a general design question.
Yep.
So local storage and use context. So when will be a good time to use local storage, and when should we use context? Because just it seems pretty same to me.
Sure. So local storage is essentially a key value store on the computer. Like it's literally like this key has this value and it's all strings.
Yes.
So whereas use context is a bit more involved. It's a bit more annoying to set up. though basically you can store whole complex objects. Also, use context generally is not designed for persistence, as in like here's a classic example of what I might do. Is if I wanted to store something forever, I might have, you know, I might actually work with it and use context. So I probably got a lot of stuff I want to store, you know, lots of little tidbits of information, perhaps. And whenever I'm done with it, I will package all of that. I'll package that entire object into one JSON string, and then I'll store that JSON string in local storage to basically like save part of the application state if I wanted to, or just part of it. But basically use context is easier to store complex objects, harder to set up, and it doesn't last between browser sessions. Like local storage will just stay there for a certain amount of time, even if you refresh the page, whereas use context is not about that. Use context is just like use state at a global level. That's all it is.
Okay, so for use like local storage, you will only have one place, one local storage, and that's it. For use context, is that common to have several use contexts? Because one of my friend, we have a global use context, and she use a local use context for some other features. It just sounds like a weird design pattern for me. So just want to confirm.
You can use context a lot of different ways. I don't use it much in reality, but that's because most bigger applications will tend to use some kind of state manager like Redux, MobX, Apollo, and they'll kind of replace the need for use context. So I'm not a great advisor on a use context design because in some ways there's more advanced things for it. In the course, we just give people the ability to kind of create like one global store because we kind of think the application's small enough that use state will probably be plenty for you in most cases, except for the things you need to do like globally, which, I mean, what would you need to do globally? Probably just like, is the user logged in and the tokens? That's probably the main thing. And you could use local storage for that if you wanted to. Most stuff I'd probably use state for. Like just to drag that out, like for example, it's like when I fetch all the question data for a question, I would fetch that and then I would store that in the main component state that's responsible for the question editing. And then I would like pass key pieces of that information down through different components through props.
Okay.
Because there will be some people out here who they just like load the entire question into use context and then they access that from everywhere. And I don't think anyone would really lose a lot of marks for that because I doubt many tutors would like code quality marks are quite low in this course. And I doubt tutors are going to like find it and punish people for it aggressively. So, but like, so that'd be fine. It's just bad design because now all of your components are like, you know, overfitted to like one common source of truth. You know, it reduces the reusability of your code pretty dramatically.
Okay.
I hope that made sense.
Yep.
That's all good. Thanks, Sibo. A lot of my code contains elements which are wrappers around a bunch of React Bootstrap components. Should I just pick the components which don't involve these as they can't really be tested properly? I would say like pick the components, not so much that don't involve them, but like have more of your stuff written. Do you know what I mean? Like, again, it's like, if you write more code in it and you have more props, then that's a good enough thing. I wouldn't so much avoid component libraries as much as I would seek out components that you've written more parts of. Even though they're kind of one and the same, but you know, you're on the right track. Yeah. So good. Do we need to put the SVG image into a separate file and import from it, or can we just define it inside the JSX file? So for the sake of this project, it doesn't matter. So whatever you prefer. In general, in React, it also won't really matter because with a lot of React things, if you define it in another file and then you import it, React as part of the transpilation will often package them together as if you put it straight in the source code. In reality, the only time you'd probably be interested in bringing it out into its own file is if the SVG is so large, like it's like literally a, you know, hundreds of kilobytes in size. So you want to put it in another file so that the initial page load happens quicker, and then the browser can slowly load in the images normally. But again, that's a consideration that's well beyond this assignment. But that's why you would export it. Yeah. I wonder how to make a few checkboxes which only check once or check more than once, depending on cases. If you're asking how do we make checkboxes that can either check only one of a set or can check many in the set, you're actually probably overcomplicating it because inputs are as part of like the HTML standard you have two types of inputs, which are checkboxes and radios. And you can Google these, like they're just two types of input types. Like there's text, password, checkbox, and radio. And there's probably some abstractions of these in like the component libraries too that you find online. But basically, radios are a collection of options where only one can be selected, one or none technically. And checkboxes are a collection of options where any of the checkboxes can be selected. So essentially, if you're trying to toggle it, like the two ways you could do it are either have two different ways of rendering it, like conditional rendering, where like in one case you use checkbox logic, and the other case you use radio logic. If you're trying to do something more boutique though, I'd probably say you're not even looking at inputs or something. You're managing all the state yourself. And if there's like 6 boxes you can select, then you're basically just going to be writing your own code to like manage, how many boxes are selected. If one is already selected, when you click on the other, deselect them all. You know what I mean? Like handling that logic manually. I only mentioned that part because I would imagine part of the reason why you're asking is for players to select certain options of answers. So if it's the latter, then I would probably consider looking at my own manual logic. It's not too hard. And again, like if you're not physically using the checkbox and radio buttons, then I might not use them. Because you can kind of use them and just style them. It gets a bit weird. Sometimes it's easier just to do something quick yourself. Yep. There isn't much mention of error handling in the spec. How thorough do errors have to be, and can we show error things like invalid token if they come up, or should we avoid showing those errors? Generally speaking, we're pretty lax on errors. Like what? If a user tries to do something that they can't, if you stop them and give them some kind of indication that there's a problem, that's going to be enough for us generally. We're not going to look for specific errors or anything like that. Like if someone tries to log in, or if someone tries to do something they can't, then just any kind of error. A lot of libraries have toast notifications. It's pretty quick to build your own component and wrap it at the highest level or something and just make it hidden or not hidden. That's actually probably a great example of where use context is really helpful. Is like being able to kind of set whether an error is displayed or not in any component in the application, potentially, depending on what you want to do. But no, we're not going to be too crazy about like what the error says. Just as long as there's some kind of like something's gone wrong. The admin can skip the current question. I'm not really sure what that means. I mean, nothing stops the admin. Oh, you mean like if the question's playing? I don't know. I guess you could try calling advance in the middle of a question. I have a feeling it might throw an error. I wrote the backend like 6 months ago, so I don't remember off the top of my head. I have a feeling it might throw an error. It's either going to advance it or throw an error. And I feel like it would, I don't know. You could try it out pretty quick. Can you stop a game while it's being played? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the quiz end happens anytime. I think you can just hit end anytime. Yeah. Let's confirm 2.2.1 dash a dashboard of all the games is displayed. Does that mean just games of the particular admin, right? Like not all the quizzes? That's a good question. You're right. It's just the games pertaining to a particular admin, not all the games in the database. I'll make a note of that because that's a reasonable thing to clarify for next time we use the assignment. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess that makes sense. The backend would yeah. Has anyone poked around the backend or tried to modify it or anything? I mean, I don't think anyone has to. I don't think there's much. I think the problem with modifying the backend too is like as I said, we only want people modifying it if they're adding features. And it's kind of hard to add features through a backend. It's a lot easier to kind of make them with React and stuff. So okay, just because we're getting up to a break time anyway. I might end it here. Obviously, we have a lecture on Thursday about the exam. I know most of you will be a bunch of people that come because you're finished and those who aren't won't. That makes sense. But yeah, so thanks for coming. I'll upload these videos and stuff too, so you can easily find the Canva piece or anything from tonight. And yeah, I'll see you on Thursday or whenever you listen to the recording sometime, or never, depending on what type of student you are. So thanks everyone. Have a good night.